When Michelangelo was just 15 years old, his artwork impressed Lorenzo the Magnificent so much that the ruler offered the young artist a place to stay at his palace. Michelangelo, Divine Artistic Genius Part 1 of 2. Continue watching to find out more.
Come stai? That's how are you in Italian. I am Nicoletta. The amicable Italian people wish you abundant inspiration and bliss. Today's viewing is part 1 of a 2-part series entitled Michelangelo, Divine Artistic Genius.
I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free. Michelangelo Buonarroti.
A leading light of the Italian Renaissance, Michelangelo was known as Il Divino, meaning Divine One, and is considered one of the greatest artists of all time. A poet, sculptor, and architect, his creations include internationally renowned masterpieces like the famous marble sculpture of King David of Israel and the magnificent biblical painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo was also a principal architect involved in constructing one of the Vatican's holiest buildings, St. Peter's Basilica. Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni was born on March 6, 1475, in the village of Caprese, east of Florence, Italy. His mother was unable to nurse Michelangelo after his birth, so he was put under the care of a wet nurse. Years later, Michelangelo attributed his creative ability to having a wet nurse who came from a family of stone carvers. Michelangelo lost his mother when he was 6 years old. His father, a local magistrate, had to bring up 5 sons on his own and was not supportive of Michelangelo's love of the arts. Still, Michelangelo persevered and produced works which showed an extraordinary talent. Instead of learning to read and write, Michelangelo spent his day with a stone cutter, playing with his tools and watching him work with the stones. When he was 10, Michelangelo's father remarried and moved the family to Florence. It would be one of the most exciting cities in Europe for Michelangelo to grow up in. In the late 15th century, Florence was home to the Renaissance, a time of rebirth, artistic, intellectual, and spiritual. It was a time filled with cultural optimism, and there were many artisans reaching the pinnacle of their professions. Florence was an opportune place for the talented Michelangelo to learn his trades in workshops devoted to architecture, painting, and sculpture, and he would quickly master all 3 of these art forms. When he was 13, Michelangelo's father finally allowed him to become an artist's apprentice. Michelangelo joined the workshop of a notable fresco painter called Domenico Ghirlandaio. From a young age, Michelangelo strived for perfection. He learned a whole range of skills during his time with Ghirlandaio. He studied painting and mastered the technique called fresco, painting murals on fresh plaster. He loved roaming the streets of Florence, observing and sketching the city's exquisite churches and sculptures. Let's pause to appreciate magnificent artworks of the past and their exquisite beauty. We'll be right back here on Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to our program on Michelangelo, Divine Artistic Genius. In 1490, at the age of 15, Michelangelo left Ghirlandaio's workshop when his talent had been spotted by a powerful patron of the Renaissance, Lorenzo the Magnificent, head of the Medici family and ruler of Florence. Lorenzo noticed Michelangelo's carving of the mythical faun, a god that is half man and half god, and said that a creature that was so old would not have such a full set of teeth. To please Lorenzo, Michelangelo knocked out one of the faun's teeth. Impressed by the boy's aptitude, Lorenzo offered Michelangelo a home in his palace to study classical sculpture in the Medici gardens, treating him as his own son. During his stay at the palace, Michelangelo had lunch every day with Lorenzo the Magnificent and notable poets, philosophers, and businessmen. Michelangelo studied under the famous sculptor Bertoldo di Giovanni and completed his first 2 commissions as a sculptor while he was with the Medici family. These works, the Madonna of the Stairs and the Battle of the Centers, were both amazingly sophisticated and complex for a 16-year-old. Michelangelo was first and foremost a sculptor, displaying his talent from a young age. He could see a connection between the human form and the soul, bringing his sculptures to life in a novel way for his time. His use of light and shadow gives his sculptures a truly authentic presence. When in 1492 Lorenzo passed away, Michelangelo was deeply shaken. He left the palace to return to his father's house. Soon, Lorenzo's son, Piero, who succeeded his father, expressed his eagerness to employ Michelangelo's talent. He commissioned Michelangelo to build Hercules the Snowman. It was said to have been beautiful, but naturally melted within days. Michelangelo then left Florence after a friend told him of a dream which predicted dark times for the city. Traveling around Italy in search of employment, Michelangelo secured a commission in Bologna to sculpt an angel and other figures for a tomb. Later, returning to Florence with no money or employment, Michelangelo started on a new project to earn a living. He worked on creating a sleeping Cupid, an ancient Roman god of love that appears as a naked winged boy. It was pointed out to him that his creation would be far more valuable if it appeared to be antique. In 1496, Michelangelo was summoned to Rome by Cardinal Raffaele Riario, who admired his sculptural work on Cupid. He commissioned Michelangelo to carve something for his personal sculpture garden. Michelangelo's quest for perfection took him to Carrara, in northwest Italy, in 1497 to find a block of marble. He was commissioned by a French cardinal to carve the Pietà, a sculpture of the Virgin Mary, cradling the body of Lord Jesus Christ. Michelangelo was 25 years old at the time. When the Pietà was first unveiled, it was immediately hailed as a masterpiece. The slight figure of Christ was remarkably realistic, showing a great mastery of arts. Many pilgrims would visit Rome just to see this sculpture. When he learned that some were attributing his work to another artist, Michelangelo carved his name on the statue across the front of Mary's gown. This inspired work is out in the Vatican today. Noble viewers, it's been a pleasure to have your gracious company today.